So hello everyone, welcome to VizConnect, connecting you with the art of data visualization and storytelling. My name is Sagar Kapoor. I'm part of customer success team at Tableau. So VizConnect is a weekly Tableau community call which helps you to connect with the art of data visualization and storytelling. It's a platform to inspire yourself, get connected with the community, and participate in Tableau community events. So all the sessions which are presented in the VizConnect are hosted in a YouTube channel. Go ahead, subscribe to it. Some great content waiting for you. We have a LinkedIn group. Go ahead, connect with each other and learn from each other. And follow the hashtag VizConnect on Twitter to get updated with all the upcoming sessions on VizConnect. With that, let me introduce you a speaker for today. His name is Zach Geis. So Zach is a leader for the Tableau COE for JP Morgan Chase and has been using tool for almost 10 years. He was recently selected as a member of the first Tableau Data Dev Ambassador Group and has extensive knowledge on Tableau APIs and Tableau Server. And today, Zach will talk about Tableau design tips, which he's passionate about. So Zach, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sagar. Just quick shout out, the VizConnect community has been great. You and the team have done a really great job keeping this going for so many people. And, I think it's, opened up a possibility for a lot of people to present, and it's really highlighted the community. So, thank you and the team for, welcoming me back to present and for keeping this going. I think this is great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Perfect. And thank you, Zach, for all the kind words. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys deserve it. So, you and Divya and everybody else has been working on it. I think this is great. So let me go ahead and get started. So, my name's Zach. Sagar introduced me already. So, I do lead the Tableau COE at JP Morgan Chase. So, I like Tableau so much that I do it all day, every day. And then when I'm done, I do more Tableau. And then when I wake up before work, I do more Tableau. So, if that tells you anything about me, I like Tableau. Sagar and I were talking a little bit before we started about I've got this shirt on for Tableau. I've got this hat that's Tableau. Here's a mug that's Tableau. Here's another mug that's Tableau. Got a couple backpacks. So if you have any, if you question whether I'm loyal to the Tableau and Tableau data fam, you shouldn't anymore. So let's go ahead and talk about Tableau design tips. So Sagar already kind of said all this stuff. The only thing I'll shout out there is if you want to follow me on Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to chat with everybody. I'm very open about talking and meeting new people. So if you ever have any questions, if we don't get to any questions you have today, just reach out. I'd be happy to talk anytime. And if there's anything I can do to help, be happy to talk about that. So I am passionate about multiple things with Tableau. Although I'm talking about design tips here, you might have seen other sessions where I've talked about Tableau Server or data dev and the APIs. I like to think that I'm multifaceted when it comes to Tableau, and I'm very interested in the entire spectrum of Tableau, how it connects to data, how you can extend it as an application, and all those kind of things. So I usually show a slide of my Telepublic. It's kind of interesting because before this year, it was kind of a mixed bag of different things that I worked on. This year, when you look at it, it's just a lot of these Tableau design tips. I've been focusing on building Tableau design tips since the beginning of the year. Today will be, I think, the 21st tip that I'll be sharing. And yeah, so check it out. There's a lot of different things out there. You can see all the different tips that I've done in the past, and download them, deconstruct them, figure them out, and let me know if you have questions. Like I said. So what is or are Tableau design tips? I put that there because it just felt weird. What is Tableau design tips? Just sounds a little awkward. What are Tableau design tips? I guess makes more sense, but it is a thing. So Tableau design tips are really just thinking about how you can go outside of the box with Tableau. It's just a collection of different little tips about design and how you can do things a little bit differently with Tableau. For example, here's an example of using visual context inside your filters. Actually, rather than just giving people a filter that doesn't have any context or any data behind it, you're giving them a reason to filter or select something. So just adding a little bit more context is a way to spice things up. Design tips are thinking about what people are used to in other applications. The flexibility of defining their own point of interest and the ways that they want to customize their application and work with it. Here's an example where you can click a slider to change what your focus area is, so you can draw that line a little bit more, on your own way. It's the flexibility of doing things outside of what Tableau can normally do. By default, you're usually going to have a line chart in one way. Well, why don't you just think about opportunities to give it in multiple ways and provide the user an experience to allow them to identify what is the line type that I want to see this with. It's the ability to customize things. Usually with all the applications that we use today, you're not just dropped into one single experience. You're given the opportunity to, tailor it to yourself. And this is an example where you can choose the color, you can choose the chart just by way of a simple toggle selection. It's the going outside of what Tableau usually does. Quick filters work nice, but they don't usually give you a very clear, a very custom experience. It, gives you, doing something like this allows you to change it up a little bit, assign a color within that filter, make it a custom filter as opposed to what you normally see, and identify the things based on color that you want to see inside of the chart. It's giving tabs, for example. This is something you don't normally see inside of Tableau, where you don't usually have tabs. You usually have, maybe a filter or a parameter, and it's very singular as far as the experience that you typically see with Tableau. It's just going outside of what you normally see with Tableau and thinking about the user experience, because that's something that a lot of times we kind of think it as secondhand when we design with Tableau. It's build a chart, add more charts, add some interaction, publish it out. And that's not, one of the things that I think is a struggle with Tableau is we don't think about how people usually use other applications. Tableau is great at what it does, but it doesn't flow well when you're going from something like Twitter on your phone to Tableau. Completely different how you experience things elsewhere. So it's thinking about how you change the experience and go outside of the box with Tableau. You want to see more of the actual tips themselves. I kind of went through a couple GIFs there. Just search the hashtag or go to my public account. You can see more there. I'm not planning to spend a lot of time on PowerPoint. I've just got a couple more slides, which was at the beginning. That's something when I do these presentations, I like to get in the tool and give you an opportunity to interact with me. So we'll do that here in a moment. Before I do that, tips from my tips. There's kind of 5 key things that I found when going through these tips and building them and putting them out there. So the first is, and I continue to say that, think outside of the box. Are there ways that you can give an experience that maybe is not directly in Tableau? Is it just creating a custom filter? Is it creating a custom chart? Is it giving additional opportunities to interact or customize or influence the charts themselves? User experience is everything. So when you're feeling wrapped up with a dashboard or something for a user, look at it from the eyes of, I haven't used Tableau before. I don't know how to drag and select across bars. I don't know how to click, the apply button within this filter. I don't know where to go for this. I don't know how to even get a PDF or get the data, heaven forbid, all those kind of things. There's it's just really thinking about what is their experience if they don't use Tableau. I try to do that with every single dashboard that I build. Just how would I see this and interact with this if I'm new? A good way to do that is give it to somebody that doesn't know Tableau. You have a friend or a family member that you can share these things with. Give it to them and get their perspective. Watch over their shoulder, see how it goes. And it's always good to find inspiration. A lot of these tips are not just off of the top of my head. I've spent countless hours going through, Dribbble and Pinterest and, feeds and blogs and all these different things just to find inspiration on, what are some of those hot topics and items that you see a lot in design outside of database and outside of Tableau. And that can help to inspire you into where you should go with your Tableau designs. Parameter actions. I found that really when I started this project that I thought that I'd use a good mix of a lot of the different functionalities. One thing that I use almost in, I would probably say every single tip is parameter actions. They allow you to do so much, and we'll actually use a couple when we build this tip here in a minute together. Just in general, you're probably going to use parameter actions if you ever want to go outside of the box. No highlight trick, period, again. Just because this is something I also use on almost all of them. And we'll get through this, but Tableau has a tendency to highlight things as you click on them. And that, again, is going against the grain of what you normally see in other applications. Usually when you click on something, maybe it'll change, but it doesn't keep the selection of the entire sheet or charts that you have selected. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And let's build. Like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time in PowerPoint. I want to work through this tip together. I think that that's going to make the most sense. So what are we building? I'm going to move something from my other screen. Just give me 1 second. So if you've ever heard of Nadia Bremer, Nadia is a very well-known designer inside of DataViz. She actually just came out with a book earlier this week. And this is something she built a long time ago. Just a simple set of bars with a ability to select the field that you want to actually have as your attention field or your main field. And then on the right, you can actually filter to select what you actually want to see within a list of fields. We're going to build pretty much this in Tableau. So I'll show you before we actually get started. It's a little bit different. A couple things that I changed. I added the labels. I didn't worry too much about the right side having the icons on top. Thought that would be a little bit too much to go through as a group. But for the most part, it's the same thing. We're going to build it to where you can select the field that you care about, and then we're going to add a filter over on the right side so that you can actually pick and choose where inside of that list you want to focus on the left side. Okay, so with that said, let's flip to Tableau, and we're going to spend most of the rest of the time in Tableau. So the first thing we're going to do, and again, this is built, I'm going to kind of do this slowly. I'm going to talk through this as we go so that you can follow along, build things, or build this set of charts with me. So the first thing we're going to do inside of Tableau is connect to data, and we're going to connect to our Superstore data set. I'm going to say this real quick before I forget. I went through this one time. I haven't practiced this, so hopefully everything will go fine. I might stumble a little bit along the way. Just be patient with me. All right, so just because this is what I like to do first when I start up a Tableau workbook, I'm just going to go ahead and save this, and we'll call this our VizConnect tip. And I'm going to make this a package workbook, throw it on my desktop as I work that way, and then we'll go up here and we'll extract this. Now I find that as I've used Tableau a long time, one of the things that teaches me Tableau the best is watching how other people do things. Not to say you'll learn a lot just from watching me do things, but I'll try and call things out if I have little tips or tricks, just so that we can have some tips inside the tip. Now, if you're playing a drinking game for the word tip, you're probably already drunk. So let's go ahead. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to call this sales. Okay. So what we want to do is create the first chart. We're going to create that first little bar chart so that we can see what's going on. So everything that we've got today is within the product subcategory. So if you go into product, you expand that. Let's drag up our subcategory. So we've got this. And then let's go down here and let's find our sales and put it like this. So that's good. We're going to go ahead and sort that so that we've got the largest on the top. A couple cleanup things. I'm going to fit this entire view. I'm going to hide the field level up here. I'm going to take away my axis down here. I'm going to do a little bit of formatting. So right click format and go over to my line tab up here. And then I'm going to take off my grid lines, anything else really. Take off my zero line. I think I've got my axis rulers on right there. Go over here, my rows, do the same thing, take off my axis rulers. Make sure that we've pretty much got all this off. I'm also, just to keep this simple, going to take off my tooltip. So go into tooltip, uncheck that, and go from there. So All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and format my header here. So let's pick something decently large. I'd say something around 14. So it looks like that. And then let's go ahead and give it a label. So hidden label, check that on. There we go. So we'll format that so it doesn't look so clunky up there. So I'm right clicking sum of sales format. And I'm going to go into my numbers over here, pane, numbers, currency, and we'll make that currency custom 0 decimal places, thousands. Now, if I'm going a little bit too fast, it's just because we have a lot to cover in here. These little things like the format, it's not the end of the world if you don't catch up with me and you just got to skip ahead. That's fine. Last couple things we'll do here is we'll modify our label. We'll make that a little bit bigger, we'll make it 12, just so it's decently sized. And I'm going to make it match mark color. Okay. So let me think for a second, make sure I feel good about this. I do. The last thing I'm going to do before I repeat this for the other charts is I'm going to go ahead and create one of my parameters that we're going to use in all of our parameter actions. So this one is going to be our, so jumping ahead a little bit. So we're going to go into Excel. So hopefully you have Excel. If not, that's okay. You can do this in Notepad. This is another little trick that I do a lot. So I do a lot of different buttons and icons to change things. The reason I'm going to Excel is I want to create a parameter that does category, or that does sales, profit, and quantity. Those are the 3 values that I've got. I don't necessarily have that in my data, like linearly, actually like a linear list of that. So I'm going to go over here and just type out what I want. So category, sales, profit, and quantity. So pretty simple, that's it. Now this is where it gets pretty easy. You just are going to grab this, Control C, I'm copying. I'm just going to pop over here and hit Control V. You didn't know that? You can always copy and paste data directly into Tableau just like this. And give it a second to catch up with me. It usually take that long, might be because I'm presenting. There we go. So it's copying in, you'll give that a second, and then you'll get a new data source. So this makes it really flexible. If you ever need to go in and like change how your categories are working or anything like that, or your buttons, you just go over here, and then I can extract this just like my other one. I'll rename this and just call this category, so I know what I'm looking at. And now I've got an extra data set that I can use for anything else. So the reason I did that is because I now want to use this category to create a parameter. And I'm going to reference this again later on. So I'll just right click on category, say create parameter, and we're just going to call this selected category. And I call it that just so if I use some fields later that we've copied from something else, it'll work. So, all right, so we're good on that. Let's go back to our sales tab. Now, the reason that I said that is I want to create a little field to set, basically check, does the parameter equal the field that I've got in this chart here? And I'm going to do an inline calculation. So a lot of times you hear people don't use inline calculations there, but if you're going to use it in one place, I think it's fine. So I'm going to double click right here under my detail, and that opens up an inline editing dialog. So in here, I'm really just going to say, does the selected category equal sales? So if I look at that, it's really just selected category equals sales. And when I hit enter, it's going to be true or false. It's going to say basically yes or no, it does. And if I drag this up to color, it's going to be false, because if we go into our selected category parameter down here and show parameter, it said on profit. If I hit sales, it's going to flip to true. Now I do have some color codes just to make it look like the chart that we were looking at before. So I'll flip over here, and I've got this little, just to make sure I don't forget anything. So if you want to look at this, it's 981708, just if you want to be as precise on this as I am. So we'll copy that into here, hit OK. And again, I don't think I covered this. You can double click this to change that and actually jump into the HTML. We'll hit OK. And then if we change this, it's going to flip to false. and we can change that color as well. So the false color is right here, C0BE, whoops, C0BE C0. So again, don't have to be super precise here if you don't want to. You could just make it red and gray. For mine, I'm going to make it very, very close to what I want there. Okay, so I feel good about this. I've got my sales. It's going to change based on what I pick in here. If I pick sales, it's going to flip to red. I'm good to go. So I'm going to actually duplicate this sheet now. And we're going to call this new one profit. So a couple changes. We're going to, of course, flip the field so that I've got profit up here. So I feel good about that. We can unshow the header just like we had before. And since we already had the header on the other one, we're going to take off the header for this one as well. Now, the only other change I'm going to make here is I'm going to double click into this inline calculation and just change it to be profit. Okay. So now if I go to profit, I'm good to go. Now, again, inline calculations is really just up to you, but this made it easier for me to flip into the next chart without creating a new calculation and changing things. So now if I duplicate this again, I have even less work, and I'm just going to go in here and make my quantity and uncheck this, and then just change it one more time. Quantity. Make sure that works. Quantity looks good to me, and then we'll just make sure we name that appropriately. Okay. So let's start to put a dashboard together. You can just check the time. I think we're doing okay. I don't know if I mentioned this, but we will leave time at the end for any sort of questions you guys have. So we'll call this the magic tip, because that's what I'm calling it, this one. So all of my tips are 1,000 by 600. And I'm just going to go into, wait, I want to see the screen share thing. All right. One thing I always forget is to remove the phone layout. So just go up here to phone, hit delete layout, and we're good to go. So the first couple things I always do. So I'm a floating guy. I just like the control of floating. So change it to floating, and we're just going to say Tableau design tips and magic filter tip. I'll bump that up a little bit, maybe 18-ish. That's a little small, maybe 22. Hit OK. Okay. Feel good about that. Let's go ahead and put our name down here. So I'm going to put design exact Geis. I put that on the right side, and then I drop it down here. And then just because we are using some inspiration, it's always good to call out inspiration from Nadia Brad. Call that out, make sure that's on there as well. Okay. So how do we want to design this? I think the first thing we want is a horizontal container just to club this stuff together. So we'll drag that out. Now we want to leave some space for the filter on the right side. And then we're going to just drag these in here. So if you don't know, you can hold shift here, drop that in, profit, quantity, we like it. We'll go ahead and hide these titles, hide this title, and yeah, I think that's okay. Let's go over here to the right side. We don't want all this stuff, so we're going to double click this, double click in the title or header of any of these, and then you can hit that X, delete container. So we're getting closer and closer. One thing I noticed that I forgot over here is I'm going to right click this first one, format. I actually do want my row divider, and I'll just kind of turn this on at a lighter gray and something like that. We'll do the same thing for these ones over here, right there, and something right there. Okay, so I'm okay with that. I think that looks good. The next thing we want to do is we want to create our filter over here on the right side. So let's go over here and create one more sheet. Call it filter. And so we want to start thinking about this as the ability to pick which field you want to do. And so rather than dragging sales or quantity of profit, we're going to create a new field. And we'll call this selected field. And this is a case statement. So we're going to say case selected category. Okay. And so if you don't use case statements, it's really just saying when it is sales, then give me the sum of sales. And I bet you can guess the next line. When it's profit, then sum of profit. And when it is quantity, then sum of quantity. And I feel good about it. So again, case statement, select a category when it's sales, and sales, profit, quantity, etc. And let's hit OK. All right, so let's put this up here, column. Got that. And then we want our subcategory just like the other ones. We'll go ahead and fit this entire view like we did before. And just to save us some time, let's go over quantity, copy the formatting. So you can right click, copy the formatting, go over to our filter and paste the formatting. So looking pretty close here. Some changes we'll make. So we'll take off the header here. We'll take off the header here. We'll take off the tooltip. We'll go ahead and sort this descending. Let's take off our title. Let's format and take off our row divider. And let's just make this a nice soft gray. Okay, so I think that's good. We'll go ahead and go back into our main page. And let's drag our filter in. So filter, take off our title, move it down here. Okay, that looks good to me. So the next thing, let's go ahead and give ourselves some titles. So one of the things that we did in the other chart that I showed as an example was the ability to click the title and change what selected measure. So this is where we get into the parameter action piece. So the first thing we're going to do is go over here to a new sheet, and we'll just call this our header. I'll just keep it something simple. This one we actually do want to use our category. This is when it starts to come back into play. And we just want to drag it across the top. So we've got profit, quantity, sales, like I would want. We want it in the same order. So let's go ahead and sort that. Let's just do manual and make sure sales is at the top. So I think that's right, sales, profit, category. And we want a shape. So you might have seen other blog posts about this, but one of the most useful things you can do when customizing Tableau and going outside the box is making transparent shapes. And I'll talk a little bit about why. But first, let's go ahead and make a transparent shape. So the first time I'm going to flip outside of Tableau and Excel, we're going to go back into PowerPoint. So you'll see over here, I've left a blank page. So it's very easy in PowerPoint to create a transparent shape. I usually use Illustrator, but you can use this. You know, I would have tried Paint, but you can't even do it in Paint. So hopefully you have PowerPoint. If not, it's not the end of the world. You can keep it a colored icon or something like that. But very easy here in PowerPoint. We're just going to create a square. And I'll give it a second because I should have told you to open PowerPoint before I even got to this. So I'll go really slowly here so you guys can catch up. So I've created a square. I'm going to go ahead and go up to shape outline, so no outline, shape fill, no fill. That easy to create a transparent shape. And then if you go, if you lose it, just drag across, and then right click outside on the border and hit export. Hold on, let me scroll up a little bit. Hit save as picture. Sorry, save as picture. We'll go ahead and throw that here on my desktop so I don't lose it. And we'll just call this transparent. Okay. Good. So only thing there, just to make sure, save it as a PNG. It should have automatically done that, but if it didn't, save it as PNG. The only image type you can get a transparent attribute outside of PowerPoint when you're exporting from PowerPoint. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to my desktop. So Please don't, it's not too bad. Usually our desktop is much more cluttered than this, but we're just gonna go to the desktop to grab that picture to copy it. So I use a ton of custom shapes inside of my Tableau stuff. And I never remember where custom shapes are inside of Tableau. So I'm going to give you another little tip of mine. So what I usually do if I create a custom shape that I want to add to my shape repository is rather than going and finding that shape, I'm just going to go here to File, Repository Location, and that takes you right into where your shapes are. You go into the shape folder, and we'll just, you can do the same thing. Create VizConnect. Go into that and then hit right click and hit paste. And the weird thing, you won't see it, but I can guarantee you it's there. I use this all the time. You can paste it there, then just hit cancel, and now you've got a new shape. So that's what I want to apply here is that transparent shape. So I'm just going to go into the shape. And again, if you haven't done this, drag category up here, make it a shape, go into more shapes. You got to always make sure you hit reload shapes if you added something new, and then go up here to the shape palette, and we'll see we have VizConnect. Oh, there's nothing there, but there is. It's transparent. So we hit OK. And again, it's hard to see, but there is a shape there. We'll size it up a little bit. I think we probably want a little bit more than the second hash right there. And a couple other little cleanup. We'll take off our header. We will format this and take off our rows. And what else do we want to do? We want to give it a label. Otherwise, it's hard to even tell what we're looking at. So show mark label. I'm going to hold control and drag category to label, just so I've got that on there. And now we see a label. We'll take off our tooltip. I don't want that. Now we've got a clean little set of buttons. We go over here and we can drag these headers down. Just put them somewhere up here so that it fits. So take off the title, entire view, drag them across. Two things I'll do here. So I'm going to format my sheet, make sure that it is transparent. That'll come back later. And I'm going to go in here, obviously my alignment's off, and that's mostly just because if I go into label, let's make sure my alignment is in the middle in both ways. Okay, so those are aligning pretty well. I'm good with that. Now's when you're probably asking, okay, why do we do that? So now that we have these buttons up here, we can actually change a parameter. And if we change a parameter, we can influence the charts below. So let's go ahead and now go to our dashboard actions, add an action, and change parameter value. So I'm just going to say select field. We'll make sure we've got our right thing selected. So the headers, little trick here, you can hold control, hit space, do it all at once. Change our parameter. We want to change the selected category. We want to keep it none, hit OK. So what does that really do? So right now, it's not going to do a lot, but it is going to change this selection over here. So we hit sales. That was already sales. So we hit profit, and that didn't change anything. Let me check that real quick. Headers, category, selected category. I didn't pick a field. So if you follow along and miss that, hit a field, make sure that's category, hit OK. So now we can hit this, change that, and we'll actually see the chart over here to the right change. So one thing it didn't change was these charts. It should have changed these charts. So it's at least changing the color, but it's not sorting. That's one of the things that we did in that chart. So this is pretty easy. Now that we have our selected field, we can take that selected field, and we can put that on our, well, actually, we don't even need to put that there. We can go up here to subcategory and just say sort by descending selected field. So we want to do that on all three of our charts. Sort by selected field. Sort by, you guessed it, selected field. All right. I don't like the cheat twos there. It bugs me when I have extra stuff. But now, if I click these, I can actually see them sort. So we're getting there. We're starting to see how this should look. So the next thing is we're going to do a little bit more on this, just to clean it up. So one thing that we really liked, that I really liked in that example was the headers themselves and how when you select something, it looks different. And that's, again, that kind of getting into that, think about the user experience. So it's not super obvious to me as a user that I need to click these headers to change this. That's not obvious. So let's make it a little bit more obvious. And what I'm going to do that is let's just create a calculated field. And we're going to say do selected header. And it's really pretty simple here. If category equals selected category, then category end. And the reason I'm doing this is because we want to add something to this. So we're just going to say plus, put that in quotations, give it a space or two, and I put this over here. You can just use a down arrow, or you can go into the alt code site. If you just do a quick search, you can find the site that looks something like this. And I'm just going to copy this down arrow. Okay. And I'll put that in here. I'll get right there, hit OK. And I'm just going to duplicate that for my non-selected. So I'll edit this and say not selected header. I'm very good with names if you haven't seen this. Notice this. Hit and hit delete, we'll hit OK. Now, why did I do that? That seems like a lot of work. So the reason I did that is because now I can format them independently. When it's selected, I can do something. When it's not selected, I can do something else. So we'll grab them both. I'm hitting Control, and then I'll just drag them into my label. We'll hop into the label itself and then hit the edit button. So we don't want that original header. We want to put these on the same line so you don't really see them differently. Delete any extra space at the end. Make sure they're still center aligned. And what else do we want to do? Let's go ahead and bump them up, make them 12, for example. And here's where you can start to actually show some distinction between the two. So if I select selected header, I'll keep that black, but maybe not selected is great. Maybe let's just soften down a little. Hit OK. And let's go ahead and jump over to our tip. Doesn't look right. What do we got? This wrong. Oh, I know it's wrong. So let's go into our not selected header, and we want this to be it's not equal, because otherwise it's the same thing. Okay, that should fix it. Let's check. Yes, I like it. That's good. It's not quite as distinct between the two as I'd like, so I'm just going to go in here and make my not selected a little bit muted, a little bit more muted, and then go in here. And now we're starting to see it looks different. There's a bit more of a call to action there that I can actually change this. Okay. So getting close on time. So let's go ahead and do the main part of this tip, which is over here. So what we want to happen is when I click a bar, we want to select the ones around it so that it's not just that one. It's not the entirety. It is just a few on either side. So we're going to hop in here. And we're going to first create one new parameter by right-clicking subcategory and create a parameter. We'll just call this selected sub, lazy, and we've got another parameter. Okay. So next we want to create a calculated field. Now, these are going to look a little bit more complex than they really are. Call this first one rank. So I've got them over here in my notepad, and I didn't want to have to type these out for you. So the first one is really just giving us a rank of what's selected. So if it's the selected subcategory, so attribute sub equals selected sub, let me, just because I like to do this, let me see if I can, all attendees, put this out here so you don't have to type it. So I think you should have that. So rank is this right here. If attribute sub selected, then give me the rank. So give me the rank of whatever parameter selected subcategories is there. Not explaining that well. That's okay. We're going to create one other field, and we're going to call this one filter. Again, I am a genius at naming things. This one is a little bit more complex, and it looks worse than it really is. So again, I'm going to put that out there into the chat. Hopefully you guys have that so you don't have to type this. But we're going to just copy this over here. Let me explain what's going on. So we're checking the rank from our other field. So give me, if I'm selecting, for example, this third bar, give me the rank of that. It's 3. Okay. So is 3 less than or equal to 5, and is the index less than or equal to 5? The way that you can kind of club this together is we've got the first one, which is beginning, middle, end. And the reason I have to do that is you can't, just because we want 2 on either side of the selection, if I pick the first one and I just did that, I'd only get the first 3 because I'm not calculating for the beginning. So the beginning is just saying, if it's less than 5, then just highlight the first 5. And that's what the index less than 5 is doing. If it's the end, do the opposite. Check if it's the greater than 12, which is, you could dynamically do this, but I was in a little bit of a rush. So if it's greater than 12, there's 17 marks here. So if it's greater than 12, just do the last 5 basically. And then the middle is doing a little bit more work. It's just saying if it's greater than 5 and it's less than 12, then go ahead and give me the 2 under it and the 2 above it. I think I flipped those, but you get it. So we'll hit OK. And then now we can just drag our filter to color. And there we go. We're starting to get something that looks right. So we'll hit true. Let's go ahead and double click this. And again, I'm going to use those same ones. So I'll actually copy them in now. So red is this color right here. So hit OK. Gray is this color right here. We'll hit OK, OK, blah, blah, blah. And we're good. Okay. So starting to look right. The next thing we're going to do is go into each of these charts and use that new filter field. Filter. And instead of it being a color, it's just going to be true or false. It's true here. It is true here. And it is true here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, go back to our dashboard. And now it's really starting to come together, right? So what do we want to do next? The next thing is we want to actually have this change, because right now if you click on these, nothing happens. So let's go ahead and create a new action and a second parameter change. And we'll say change sub. Again, I'm just going to pick the ones I want, so I don't want any of these. We want to change the selected sub. Actually add the field this time, hit OK, and we've now got it working. So if I click over here, I get the 2 around it. Click up here, I get the first 5. If I click down here, I get the last 5. So, and you'll see everything's happening. So it's all changing over here. If I click a different header, it changes over here. If I then change it again down here, it continues to pick the different things. So we're about 90% there. The last thing I want to do before we kind of flip over for questions is that no highlight trick. So this is one of my favorite things with Tableau, or favorite tricks that you can do with Tableau. And one of the things that I don't like about Tableau is the selection. Like I said, I click that. I hate that Tableau is going to then kind of hide everything else. It's going to focus on that. It works in some cases, in very simple cases, but a lot of ways it just honestly doesn't make sense, because you click in another application, or a website, you're not going to have that effect. So it's very simple to actually get away from this. We're going to go into the sheet and we're going to create 2 new fields. Now, I would caution you, these are very, very, very challenging fields to understand, and they're very hard to write. So we're going to call the first one 1 and write the number 1, and that's it. Just kidding. So hit OK, and then we're going to just do a couple changes. We're going to right click it, convert to discrete. We're going to right click it and convert to dimension. Okay, so discrete dimension. And then we're just going to duplicate that, and this new one Another very challenging one is going to be 0, and you guessed it, it's a 0. So these allow us to actually change how Tableau interprets my highlighting action. So I'm just going to multi-select these, drag them up to detail, and I'm good. I'm actually going to do the same thing on my headers because I know I'm going to want them over here. So we'll go ahead, just because I'm on the wrong sheet or wrong data source, copy them over here. Category, paste them over here. And then I'll do the same thing into 10, put them on detail. So let's go up to our actions. And we're going to do 2 new actions to wrap this up. So add action filter, no highlight, and we'll call this no highlight filter. And we're going to do the filter selection to make sure it's a select. And rather than it going into the dashboard, we want it to go straight into the sheet itself, so filter. The last thing is we want selected fields, add filter, and then pick either the 1 or the 0, and then it passes to the other one. So the reason this works is when I click on something, pass 1 to 0, and 1 is never going to be the same as 0. So this could be, green and blue. This could be, cow and grass. It could be whatever you want it to be, as long as they're different. And when I pass something that's different into the sheet, it actually is going to say, rather than selecting anything, don't select anything, because there's nothing to select. And now it's not highlighting. Better user experience. It's a little thing. It takes a little bit of work, but just in doing that, it looks so much better for an end user because they don't get that weird highlighting effect that you sometimes see. And I'll just do the same thing up here because same thing happens when I hit this. Everything's kind of grayed out. So I'll go up here, dashboard actions, add a filter, no highlight, header. Go ahead and check my header, go right into the headers, and then the same thing. Add 1, add 0, hit OK, hit OK, hit OK, hit profit, and it's going to look a little bit cleaner because it doesn't highlight or deselect things. So that's our tip. I feel pretty good on the time and for not doing that to practice. Everything works. We can change our headers here. It's going to change what's sorted and how it's working. It's going to flip through things. It's like my sorting's maybe off. It might be that I descended things instead of ascending, but you can probably figure that one out on your own. But everything else looks good here. I think this works as I would expect, and hopefully you learned a thing or two new. And I don't really have any more slides because I wanted to spend the time going through that tip. So I'll just leave off with, what kind of questions do you have for me?
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. I think if it would have been more time, we'd have just gone on with all the tips and tricks. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions for Zach, just go ahead, put into the Q&A tab or comment. Happy to answer him. So Zach, one question is there from Stephen. He's asking, how big an impact do you think layers will have on saying that all the tips are using parameter actions?
Yeah, I think it can definitely help. I think that one of the things that I think is really nice about layers and where they're going with layers is less sheets. Like, I think I could do a lot of the things that I did there with maybe half the sheets. Layering things. I think you're still going to use parameter actions because parameter actions are going to be where you can control how to change things. I think that's not really going to change too much, but it's it's just, I think that what I would say in general is I love where Tableau's going. I'm a long-time user of Tableau. I've used it for almost 10 years, like you had said at the beginning. So I've seen it go from something where table calcs was a great thing, floating was a great thing, but now we have set actions, parameter actions. We have all the new customization options, even just grids and things. So the direction Tableau is going with making these little features that can expand into a lot of things is, it's really great to see.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. And Zach, I have one question. I think you have gone ahead and I think you have used Tableau for more than 10 years, right? What is your source of inspiration, right? How do you challenge yourself just to go ahead and the tips and tricks you have shown us today, right? What is the motivation behind it, right? And if someone wants to go ahead and try it out, how they can go
Yeah.
ahead and get started?
Yeah, I mean, I have been using Tableau a long time. I mean, the biggest things I can say if you're relatively new to Tableau is find the things that you like. You know, if you like these tips, if you like the other crazy, amazing things that people build in Tableau, most of it is downloadable. So just go into Tableau Public, download it, figure it out. Then I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I love just looking for inspiration elsewhere. I have a giant Pinterest board of just saved data bits. I have a Pinterest board for colors. I have a Pinterest board for shading effects. I have, I follow Dribble. I go on all the different designs, Behance, all the different design sites that you can think of, and follow things and look for inspiration. And I'm always looking for things that are not data viz that I can pull into my data viz work. There's a lot of things if you go out there and look at, good website design, good application design. I guarantee if you really think about like less of can I do that in Tableau and first starting with, oh, I like that. How am I going to do that in Tableau? I think it's going to open up your world a little bit.
Perfect. And Jana was just commenting over here, download and figure it out is a new mantra. So thank you for that. And
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and just coming back to your series of design tips, right? Do you follow any pattern or it's like a daily design tips to go ahead and post it out? Like how exactly you do that, or it's a weekly one?
Yeah, it's I was very good at doing it every single day. I've been
Okay.
pretty busy with other work the last couple weeks, so I've been a little bit more hit or miss, but I still at least like to do a couple a week. As far as like how I do them, I did start off with trying to just sketch it out at the beginning and trying to follow a daily plan, but I've actually gotten to the point where when I wake up in the morning, I just kind of sit and think, I look at things for inspiration, and I figure out what I want to do that day, and then I just build it. So it's a lot less planned than it used to be. Just even the tip that we're going through today, I sat down and kind of was looking through things. I've seen the example that I've built before, or I've seen the example that I'm using before, and I kind of fell back on that, and it was like, oh, let's do that. That's going to be a fun one to build together. So, just even last night, I did it for the first time, and even wrapped it up this morning, just to show you how like unprepared I can be. I wrapped it up this morning, probably an hour before we actually started the presentation. So not too much planning. I feel that that's just how I am. Not saying there's any reason you shouldn't plan it, but I'm just the type of person I like to just jump in and do it when I have the time.
Perfect. And any uh, tips or tricks for someone who's designing executive dashboards? Like this is one thing everyone
Yeah.
struggle with it, right? Like just going ahead and expecting you have to create crosstabs, right? What is your experience and what is one advice you will give to these people?
Yeah, so I mean, you're always gonna have the people that are kind of stuck in old ways, the people that want to do crosstabs and download data and hey, can you batch deliver a PDF that has every single combination of filters in the world? You're always gonna have the people like that. I think in general, the thing that I try to do is give them the option of going to something that I prefer. So usually, if I'm working with an executive and they want something like that, I'll build a crosstab version, I'll build my version, and I'll kind of have maybe some hints or breadcrumbs to go to the other version. So hey, you want to see a visual version of this? Click here, and then you can go to that. And then I think, and in my experience, you'll start to actually see them gravitate more to the visual version because it's more the proof is in the pudding. Like you got to get them doing it. You can't talk about it and say why you want to do it. I think generally as far as like design of executive dashboards, there's an example in here of KPIs that I've got where I think if you can, draw the user in like this, for example, and give them a simplified version of what you might expect elsewhere with some very easy navigation, that's where I would kind of focus. This is a very simple dashboard. There's a little bit more than you would expect to build something like this. It puts more of the work on us as developers and analysts and designers, but it offers them a better experience and a good design.
Perfect. Thank
And
you.
again,
And
just like anything else, yeah, I was just going to wrap up with that, or wrap up that explanation with, all of these dashboards. If you ever look at this and you're just like, how do you do that? You can download it and kind of see how I built that dashboard.
thank you, Zach. And Zainab just wants to ask you on that, like for your business dashboards, do you have any personal standards? Like I will just go ahead and use 2 to 3 maybe filters, keep it static, right? Like do you want to
Yeah,
add on
yeah. I
that?
mean,
Yeah.
you'll notice that in pretty much every one of my tips, I don't use built-in filters or parameters or anything like that because I think that you can give them something better. So I very rarely use filters in my dashboards anymore because I think that either a filtered list or something a little bit more custom gives them a better experience as far as just enabling them. If you have to, you're probably in a realistic sense going to need to add some filters in some ways. So it's not the end of the world if you have to add a couple, but there's always a lot of things, and this is speaking more from my server admin side. Like you got to think about the performance. You got to think about rendering all of those marks and rendering all of the things. And is it a live connection? Are you pulling that in live from the databases in an extra query? So in general, simple is better. Less charts is better. Less filters is better. I don't have like a set number, but it's generally the less that you can get away with, the better. And if people are asking for an extra filter, try and get the whys because that's something that we struggle with working in a company with people is they want 30 different filters for every scenario. Start to get why they really need that. Okay, should that be a new page? Should that be a chart inside of it? Should that be a way to get from page 1 to page 2? Should that be just an aspect of another chart? And then you start to really ask those questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. And then just one last question, Zach. In terms of Tableau certification, right? You are both desktop and
Yeah.
server certified. So what has been the role of certification in your journey with respect to Tableau? And if someone wants to go ahead and prepare for it, what will be your
Yeah.
advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, certification for me is always, it's number one challenge. I like to challenge myself and try and achieve those kind of certifications, get through them. So, it's something I told myself I was going to get all the certifications for Tableau. I still don't have the server certified professional, which you can only get at conference. And as you know, we haven't had a conference in a couple of years, but I have the server qualified and all of the desktop ones. As far as what you should prepare, it's just time and seat. I think rather than going out and reading the how-tos and stuff, albeit there are some good blogs out there about prepping for certification, but most of them will say the same thing, which is spend time with the tool, learn the things, play around with it. I think the more you can instill best practices into your work, the better, especially in the later exams like Certified Pro, where you actually have to build things. Build what they ask you for, but actually add some extra flair, extra visual, aptitude into your charts. It's really just taking the time to really learn the tool, spend time with it, know the ins and outs, get into some of the complicated things like parameter actions and LODs and other things like that. And I think you'll do just fine.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. And just one last question. Any books you will recommend to the people who are just starting or exploring Tableau?
Yes, sure. So the Big Book of Dashboards is always very popular. So some Zens and actual employee Tableau and Andy Group and others have built the Big Book of Dashboards, which is all great examples. Actually, I bought that the day before, or so I read that the day before my certified professional exam, and I think that helped me out because I looked at all these good examples to prepare me for that. So that's one that's good. Practical Tableau by Ryan Sleeper is also good if you want to get into the technical of Tableau and learn some more tips and tricks. I think Ryan Sleeper is one of the best in our business because he really focuses on business dashboards and how you can build things for the business. So definitely those two books would be really good. If you really want to get into like what are best practices with Tableau or data viz in general, information dashboard design is another good book as well. So that's by Stephen Few. So it won't always apply to the things that you're doing, but those three books are usually my go-to recommendations for people if they're kind of new to Tableau.
Perfect. Thank you, Zach. I think with that, Zach, it was an honor to have you back on VizConnect. Thank you. Thank you for presenting. And yeah, and we are looking forward to welcome you back for another tips and tricks for the whole data fam.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sagar. Thanks,
Th-
everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Zach. Take care. So with that, thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next week with another session, another topic. And yeah, keep learning and keep investing in your Tableau skills. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.